Okay, good morning. I want to welcome everybody to the May 20th, 21 911 board meeting. Have a call to order. We have guests and delegations. We do have representatives from Leeds here, Chief Bruce from Oneonta Fire, and Alex Smith. We do have a quorum present. We do have board member Mark Moon, or the sheriff, joining us via phone and video conference. Do we have any other? Adam Stevens, guests and delegations with us. The notice of this meeting was posted 3 weeks prior to this date. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion and second to approve the agenda. Any comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, that brings us to the minutes. The minutes were emailed last week for review.
Motion to approve. Second.
Have a motion and second to approve. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, brings us to the financial report.
You'll notice that we're short our SNEED. SNEED has typically done monthly, but it's been more of a quarterly lately. Chief Gunn's gonna follow up with them and make sure they get that submitted. For our smaller agencies, I don't know if we need to reiterate that they do have the option of paying that annually, so that they can just do it as a lump sum and then forget it. That might be something we need to add on our invoicing for next year, so they can just do a one-time, which is what Hayden and Howland Lake do. Blunsville and Oneonta have always paid monthly. Sneed's somehow or another gets forgotten sometimes. So we had that. As far as I can see, revenue-wise, as far as expenses, we're still running right at or a little bit above our budgeted payroll. Don't have enough part-time employees and still hunting those. We've talked about that at length. You're gonna notice health insurance is up a little bit. Health insurance has a strange ebb and flow of their billing cycles. If you look back to February, it was less than 10,000. When you get to April, and it's more than 20. We budget 16. The average at the end works out. I don't know how they do their billing cycles, but at the end of the year, it does average back out to where it's supposed to. So that did impact us a little bit this month. Retirement expense is kind of the same thing. It's got a strange ebb and flow to it also. The other big expense was our VFIS expense that we approved last month. That was our facilities, work comp, all of our insurance is bundled into one lump sum that we pay VFIS. Those few things put us at a net negative 44,000, which is a big net loss for a 1 month. But if you look at the forecast year end, where we originally were forecast nearly 50,000 deficit, we're down to less than an $8,000 deficit on the year end forecast. But as long as things stay like they are and nothing breaks, then all of those fun things.
Motion to approve.
All right, have a motion to approve. Motion and second to approve. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, and brings us down to staff report.
Just reiterating what I've talked about the last couple of months, finding new people is increasingly hard. We do have a couple of trainees that are doing very well. Wish we had a few more. We have tested 5 in our testing software, and only one of those has had an acceptable score so far. So we're still actively looking for another couple of folks to fill seats. One thing to add that's not on the agenda, I went to the state board meeting yesterday, first time that we've gotten to have a in-person state 911 board meeting that I've gotten to go to in a very long time, and a lot of good information that I won't bore you with, but it was very good to get to see all of our folks and network and visit with them. One thing that I will point out that the legal counsel for the state 911 board pointed out is with the expiration of the emergency order in July, unless we quantified it correctly in our bylaws, the virtual attendance may go away. So I really need to look at our bylaws and double check that, if you can help me remember to do that. I think that we added that in there correctly, but we need to make sure that we've got that phrasing correct to allow for situations like this where Mark's obviously otherwise obligated, but still has the option to try to dial in. That's all I've got as far as staff stuff.
All right. That brings us down to old business.
We are at a stale pace, still moving along. Leah's got an update here for us in a moment with some stuff on our grounding. We're in new business. Later on, we will take up some stuff tower related, but we are moving. We've got the patch equipment. We've done some voice testing even this morning with it. I've got a recording on my phone that I'll be glad to share with y'all afterwards of what the patched environment sounds like. So as soon as they get the tower capacity turned up on Powerdale and Warrior, which is a work order that is pending with Allcom, hopefully for the next couple of 3 weeks, we should be able to start getting some of those radios out to our southern counties that have a good overlap of the Powerdale and Warrior sites. And as soon as we get this site access thing emmed up on County 11, we should be. Whenever the dam breaks of all the obstacles, we're gonna go through this thing really quickly, I feel. We've got all the parts and pieces staged and ready of sorts. So I think once that we finally get over a couple of these little hurdles, we'll be able to move on pretty quickly with that. But we've got bullet point items in new business.
I get this thing rolling.
A what?
When we, ballpark when this thing might actually be turned on and we can start using it.
At the moment, no, I don't. We got to get these hurdles of grounding issues and site access ironed out. My original thought was midsummer. We're not going to make that.
First of the
But
year.
I do think end of the year, first of the year is conceivable. Things are gonna move relatively quickly once we can get over a couple of these hurdles.
I'm gonna beat a dead horse here, but, Tuesday's events were a prime example of why our old system is gonna get, is our old system gonna get somebody hurt or killed.
Yep.
We had, when I finally made it to the scene Tuesday, my lieutenant on the scene said, boss, this is horrible. He said, we had no idea where our guys were. We couldn't hear them on the radio. We couldn't find out where they were at. It's just, we've already praised having to go digital and beat the horse about why we need to get off this system, but we gotta do something to amp this thing up before somebody gets hurt or killed.
Mark, it's a technical situation, but they're moving fast, I know that, it's everything they can. I understand what happened the other day, but, you can only go so far with this stuff, that's all you can do.
Has anybody else talked to the commission about, I've talked to all of them, has anybody else talked to them about the funding?
I spoke to the commissioners, I spoke to two of the commissioners, and I spoke with Judge Green yesterday. I made a phone call to him. One of the things that they're looking at, and I know we're probably combining different
That's
things, but Commissioner Green, or Chairman Green yesterday said, one, they haven't received the money, so they don't have the money yet. But what they did say that they were keeping an open mind, that they would gonna continue to consider this as one of the top priorities. He did say public safety was a concern that they felt was high on that list. He said he couldn't speak on behalf of the entire commission, but that we were still, being considered for that funding.
Did they get
Doesn't half that drop next month?
Sir?
Doesn't half of that money drop next month?
It very well may. He just reiterated to me that they don't have it yet, so they couldn't earmark any money that they don't have yet. And they were gonna wait on that. And then also, he alluded again to the fact that they don't have, clarification that that money can be used for communications in 911. And I told him that we were gonna do everything that we can to provide them documentation and opinions that it can be used for that.
Do they have the guidelines that they've gotta have?
If they make that one of the stipulations, and if I'm not mistaken, didn't one of our commissioners on that committee decide where that money to be spent?
Well, that's yet a conversation to be had. You know, I just reached out to him and told him to please continue to keep us as a consideration with that money. And in the meantime, I've got emails to Congressman Adderhold and Palmer's office to give us federal opinions on where that money can be used for the purchase of this P25 system.
One of the ongoing conversations at a state and federal level is the reclassification of 911 employees, which includes the districts. Part of our hurdle is being a standalone district, we fit into a pot of applicants that doesn't qualify as first responders. So getting us classified as first responders at the federal and state level gets us open to a lot of these funding opportunities. And hopefully, next legislative session, that is going to finally make it to the floor.
So dispatchers aren't considered first responders, yet they service every first responder.
Correct.
That's right.
We get into a pot of employee pool that is clerical workers.
Really?
Seriously. Federal level considers 911 clerical positions.
We are actively working on that to try to get an opinion in front of the county commission that would open up the window for this funding. So, I mean, we're not slacking on this. We're actively working on that.
Well, I'm not giving up either. I believe this is gonna be something that will be a huge benefit for the entire county.
Correct.
And-
Absolutely.
And speaking with Judge Green yesterday, I mean, I know I've spoken to several of you board members who've reached out to the commissioners. I've spoken to a representative from the FOP. I've spoken to a representative from the Fire Association. They're all, they've all reached out to the county commission as well. I don't think there's any question that all of the commissioners feel that this is a worthwhile support and use. They just want to make sure that we go down the right avenue, and we're just gonna have to put those opinions and documents in front of them just to validate that.
Well, we need some politicians to grow back home.
Well, I've spoken with our commissioner, and, you know, he's all for it. Commissioner Calvert is, my understanding, had the understanding that, well, not understanding, but he was a little upset that the 911 board would push this on to everybody and then look for a way to fund it, you know, from them. But as I assured them, that's not the case. That ain't what happened. So if anybody talks to the Commissioner Calvert, you know, explain to him it's 911 board, that ain't the way this come down. You know, we didn't do this and look for a way for them to fund it. I mean, we've been kicking this can for years.
And that's the way I've tried to present it when I've talked to them, is if they can come up with some funding, that defers the responder cost.
Right.
It doesn't change the burden on the 911 board at all. We're looking for them to help pay for the responder side of the system.
Right.
And not that $20 a month that we were gonna have to saddle on the responders.
Right. Yeah, I spoke to
Whatever
Chad.
they give us, we can knock that 20 down. The more they give us, the more we can knock it down.
Yeah, I spoke to Chad, and he was the same way.
Charge them a time, right?
What was that, Mark?
We pay off the whole system, then we're not gonna charge anybody to use the system, correct?
I think we will still have to charge something minimally, but it may drop it down to like $20 a year or something.
Well, they
I
are,
think we still have to keep something going for software updates and future expansion. We still have to keep some pot of money growing, but we can knock it down to something very minimal.
Well, they actually want the municipalities to kick in also. I mean, that's their view, and of course,
And I
I
think
agree with
that's-
that. And I've spoken with ours a little bit, and, you know, but, you know, the other municipalities that's actually receiving this, you know, that's what the commissioner's hoping that they'll kick in a little bit too.
I don't
which-
think we can make a commitment on what the charges will be down the road or commit to that like what Mark was asking.
Yeah.
I think we're putting the wagon before the horses again if we try to make a commitment now and say we're gonna charge $20 a year. We can't do that until everything's done, then we look at the finances.
Until we know
So we
what
can't
that,
make that
Yeah.
formal commitment. Can I try to answer this question? Ask you said the third time. Did the commission, do they have the requirements for dispersing that money? They was looking and had not got clear information on how they could handle that money.
From the conversation that I had with Judge Green yesterday, he said that they have not received that
Okay,
yet.
that's what I heard the last time, and until they get that, they can't make no firm decisions either.
Right.
City ain't got it either.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, and they was expecting it like 2 weeks ago.
Right.
there was a detailed letter that came out from the County Commission Association, like Monday of this week. But it's gonna take Alex or somebody to translate it, cause it's like 36 pages of legalese.
But they really haven't gotten anything from the federal
Right.
government on what's
Right.
required.
And that's what,
what's got to happen.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's what we're waiting on.
Last commission meeting, I thought I heard them say that half that money would drop this June and half next year.
I don't know the time schedule on when, I have heard, through other channels that some of the counties have already received some funding or has deposited. You know, as long as they set up an account, it's already been dropped, but again, that's hearsay, so I wouldn't know.
And earlier this week, the governor's office announced another $2.5 million to 5 counties, and we were one of them. So I don't know what the stipulations on that pot of money are.
But we're gonna keep reaching out, we're gonna try to do our, you know, use all of our avenues to try to get an opinion and at least forward that to the county commission so they can have something. Anything else on the?
Did you want Lee to speak about his findings?
I've got it down as a
Oh,
bullet
okay.
point in new.
Okay, if there's not any other comment on the P-25, we can drop down to the new business.
All right. You've got in your packet a invoice for Datatech. That is our integration with RPS Ambulance that we do a 1 year, we've been doing a 1 year renewal on. It is a very nice software. It is not worth that amount of money. And I went back to him with my opinion of it is not worth that price. Currently, we are set up so that we can have that software open on 2 consoles. His opinion was that if we dropped it down to only having 1 console, he would drop the price down to $3,495. So if you'll take that and scratch it,
And explain to me again, or remind my memory, what this is for again? Remember when we first got it?
this automates the calls for ambulance for anything that we call RPS ambulance for. Leeds Fire, mutual aid calls, Rams helicopter, anything that is dispatched out of the RPS office, this automates that and saves the dispatchers having to physically make that telephone call. So it's kind of, works very similar to Active 911 or our texting system. When we show it done in the system, it automates the process and saves us having to make that extra phone call.
Any idea in the past year we've had it, how much we've had to use it or anything?
Oh yeah, every ambulance call in Leeds.
And every
Okay.
It's used
ambulance
on.
calling leads and every helicopter dispatch.
Hang on, 2,115 incidents that we sent at their original price. That's $2.50 per time At the new estimate, that drops it down to $1.73 per. And we only have one radio operator that is responsible for leads fire dispatch at a time, so I think dropping to one console still achieves our ultimate goal and knocks that price down to something that's a little bit more reasonable. But it does generally save us 2, sometimes 3 telephone calls outbound to make the original call the back for an ETA, call and cancel. Anything that we would have to do by phone, we can do in an instant message through this console and just type a message and it pops straight up on their dispatch consoles. They're really nice software, really expensive.
Do we need a motion?
Need a motion to.
I'll make a motion, we drop it down to one console and go with
Go with the new price.
the $34.95 price.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second that.
All right, have a motion and second. Any other discussion on renewal of the contract? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, and that brings us down to Spring South annual contract renewal.
Adam does a great job for us. He's at our beck and call at any point in time and does a lot of extra. So this is just our contract with Adam to keep us running for another year.
He's all right.
Oh, you. Guys, I got a lot of gray hairs cause this place. I'll trust me on that. But
I make a motion. Accept it.
Have a motion and second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed?
thank y'all as always.
All right, consultant evaluation of the R56 grounding needs. I believe that's Mr. Moore.
Mr. Moore on the screen.
All right, and Neil, is it all right if I give just kind of a quick overview of what I think the priorities on this, or would you like me to just hit just the grounding?
Whatever you feel is appropriate.
All right, I'd like to just throw a few things out that I think are priorities for the success of this project. I think it's gonna be a great, asset for Blount County. Obviously, don't wanna beat that horse, as Mr. Moon said earlier. However, after kind of getting into this late, getting up to speed, just wanted to run a few things past the board that I personally believe, having done integrations like this in other counties, you're gonna end up dealing with during the course of this project before it goes live. Based on your site layout, the County 11 tower site, for multiple reasons. One, it's the only site that has access to fiber in the county, which gives you a non-RF link back to 911. Clear site to multiple Birmingham towers for a reason to come in a little bit, as well as a potential, and I don't want to steal thunder, for recurring revenue. Whatever happens, if that site is not available as one of your sites, it's pretty much a tough redo for the RF component of this program. So I'm sure Neil's going to discuss this a little bit later. I think Adam's brought this up in past meetings, but I can't overstate how, having been on the ground, seen the layout, talked to Motorola, understood the plan, County 11 is going to be a critical factor. So that I think is your top priority. Second priority is, in doing inspections around, there were a few comments kind of tossed around. This is not determined yet, but there's a little bit of concern that the line of sight from Palisades to 911 is having some tree interference at this point. And Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, but the current link that is from Palisades to 911 has got some, what we refer to as the Fresnel zone interference. Basically, it's trees that get into the microwave path that cause the units not to operate at their optimal capacity.
Right.
So, as you're probably aware of, and if I'm going over plowed ground, just somebody throw something at me or tell me to quit. The Palisades site, again, is going to be one of the critical sites because it's an RF site, it's a microwave link site to 911, and it potentially could be, along with County 11 and or County 11, a second link site to the Birmingham core, which is critical. We'll get into that in just a minute. There was a gentleman there, and Adam can tell you his name, he was a tower climber that we had some discussions with. So I have raised that question with Motorola on all of the sites, actually, to get them to send me their microwave line of sight runs and the elevations at which they believe they're gonna install the equipment. We have just found in the past that until they actually go and do the proper path analysis to make sure, number one, that we can see the two locations, because we can't make the baskets any taller at 911. There is a possibility we could add a stick to the top of Palisades if it came to that. I don't know that that's the answer, waiting on a Motorola answer for that, but that is a topic that came up during our walkthroughs that potentially we need to address early in the process rather than somebody coming up with a climbing crew to hang it and they go, well, we can't get line of sight now, we're gonna have a problem. My goal is to help, I'm the bad guy in this. I've got thick skin, you can fuss at me about saying anything like this. My goal is to be brutally honest with you and address anything that I see as a potential showstopper for this project, because I know it is definitely needed. And it's much better to address these things early and often with Motorola. I've done quite a bit of work with them to get it to move smoothly at the end. Third priority is establishing a ring between your three sites. So we're talking about 911, Palisades, and potentially County 11, if we can work that out. So those are your three sites. And the way that these systems work the best is where you have a ring technology between all of the sites. So that if you have any one link, microwave, fiber, whatever, between those sites that drops, the site routers that Motorola is going to be installing there can reverse traffic and continue operations. So unlike when I was a firefighter, we had a stand-up repeater sitting out in a tower just like you're working now, UHF, VHF. If it went down, you might get a little bleed over from another one. You might have to switch to a different tower. If you have a single connection to an RF site and it drops, that site is in what's called site trunking. And anybody's radio that touches that site can talk to the other radio, but nothing else. No 911, no radio consoles, nothing. So establishing that is of prime importance. We've had, and it's primarily for redundancy, because you've made a lot of personal pitches on this, I'm assuming, to the community of users and the community of public officials. And the last thing that we want to get into is we have a microwave that blinks one day or gets whacked by lightning or fiber drops for a few minutes, and a select group of users can't use the system because of a single point of failure. That is not what P25 was designed to be configured as, is anything with a single point of failure. In my first call to Motorola, we have another one scheduled for the 31st. After I had that conversation, in the configuration right now, the price includes one Nokia microwave unit that would be, and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a hop from 911 to Palisades.
That's correct.
You currently don't have a microwave scheduled in the project for Palisades to County 11, assuming County 11 exists. You absolutely need that. One of the suggestions that I've made to Motorola to consider, of course they pushed back at first, and we won't let that stop us, is to look at trading that one Nokia microwave for 2 Cambium microwaves. The Nokia is a very good unit. It is the unit of the month with Motorola's deployment team. They had a bit of a supplier spat with Cambium, and so they just decided they wouldn't use their units anymore. It has nothing to do with the quality of the unit or anything. It's a Motorola issue. This Cambium used to be part of Motorola, by the way. I've had discussions with the director in Birmingham who uses Cambium exclusively. In Region 4 where you are, Cambium is used exclusively for microwave for all of the other sites. We believe that we could probably get 2 Cambium units for the price of 1 Nokia unit. So that is one of the points that we're kind of hammering Motorola on right now, is to explain the need for that to them and push back on our own to them.
Lee, can I ask you a question?
Yes,
What, is that Cambium, is that the one where they overseas, they got to get parts from overseas and get service on it?
I'm sorry,
England?
could you get a little closer to the?
So is that Cambium,
What was the supplier problem? Was it a foreign supplier, or I think is what Ken's asking?
No, again, it wasn't a foreign supplier issue. It was I think the distributor, because Cambium used to be Motorola, and then they spun out as a separate company, the distributor, they weren't giving them as good a deal, for Motorola, and so they went to Nokia. Like I said, in talking to the other core owners, they're almost exclusively Cambium. I have quite a few customers that have Cambiums. We're using them in Marshall County, where Marshall's joining, just like y'all are. They're joining the Huntsville system, and we're using Cambium units there. So, I'm perfectly comfortable with that. The core owners actually prefer those because everybody's got quite a bit of experience with Cambium units. This is just Motorola being Motorola, and they decide to change something they use periodically, so I'm charging more, in my personal opinion. And then the last thing is originally what I was hired for, which is to go around and do an inspection on the sites to bring them up to a couple standards. So one of the things that Motorola is going to require you to do, which they probably didn't tell you during the sales process, which again is somewhat normal for them, is that for them to install their equipment and to warranty it for the service period, all the sites where they have equipment must be up to date at the R56 2017 standard. That's no magic deal. It's a set of standards that determines how we do grounding, power, and just in general how we handle the inside, outside towers and attachments. So I've been through the R56 class and certified on that, along with, I went through with the group up in Huntsville 2 years ago. So every 3 years we get recertified. So I went with Neil, Adam, and a couple other folks, and we did an inspection on all 3 sites, starting with the 911 center. Made a list of items that need corrective actions. The 911 center obviously needs the least amount of corrective action because it's a reasonably new center. One of the other things I also wanted to point out is that this standard evolves. So when your building was constructed, we were working on the R56 2005 standard. Current one is 2017, kind of like the electrical standard, for houses and buildings. It changes over time. So what I did is I provided a list of items that Motorola is going to object to in the center and outside the center to Neil and Adam and the team for review. It's not, like I said, the main building is really not that bad. There's just, it's more details, some grounding cleanup, proper connectors, getting rid of a few things that just aren't right. There was a fence added around the monopole that wasn't grounded. So it's things that have just happened over time that are cleanup items. My suggestion, and this is just my suggestion because it's your money, would be that we take that document and create a statement of work and shop that with a couple of folks to see if we can get pricing for those corrective actions at all 3 sites. So obviously, Allcom's Tower Crew, I do a lot of work with. In fact, I've got 2, 3 towers going up with them right now. They're always an option. Sharp has a very good R56 team. In fact, that's the group, which is now part of MCA as well. That's the group where I actually went to their facility and took the class. So there are quite a few companies out there. Well, there's 2 here that we have good relationships with to do it. You can hire it out other places, but I think you're going to get better pricing here in town. There's probably, one of the questions that came up is this something we can do ourselves? The short answer is sure. If you buy the parts and the tools and go through the standards, teach yourself what we're trying to do, you can do some of the work cost effectively. It's going to be better to probably hire it out. Lee's opinion on that. So the 911 center, like I said, that's the least of our issues. Palisades. So Palisades was built obviously on a reasonably rocky location. We went through and did the inspection on that. That one has a little more lengthy list of items. that need corrective action. One of the biggest things that I really would like to see at Palisades, and I know there's been a company that came in and made a proposal to you to install some subsoil grounding devices that are alternatives to traditional chemical rods. I am not gonna opine on the ability of those devices to do their job. Anything that increases grounding in poor soil or rocky conditions is good with me. However, one of the first things that we need to do at that site is to have a company come in and do a 3-point resistance test on what's in the ground today, because we don't know, we can't see it, and that is our baseline test to determine is there enough copper in the ground, and is it conducting electricity well enough that it will support the tower and be able to dissipate surges and charges that come in to the site. There's no way to know that without just doing this test. I can send Neil a couple of companies that do those tests. They're not terribly expensive. Otherwise, you're just throwing money in a hole. I believe the company that went out and did it used what we refer to as a clamp-on meter to do that test. I have one in my trunk. They are good for point-to-point continuity tests and some other things, but they are not good for determining what's in the ground. I'll just be candid about that. There has been some cleanup on the tower, so they've reduced the loading on the tower. One of the other issues at the two tower sites, and it's really not an issue at Palisades because at County 11 because it's kind of a tank, but Motorola, as part of their project management, I got them to commit that they were responsible for doing structural surveys on the towers. So anytime we hang the gear on a tower, we have to do a structural survey on it to make sure, number one, the tower is not overloaded, it can support, from a wind loading standpoint, whatever else goes on there. So the good news is that cost for that is included in the project. The bad news is they really can't run that until we all agree on what's going to go on each tower. And so the decisions about, do we get a second microwave, make our ring, do we have the proper height to get clear line of sight at Palisades to 911. So those are decisions that need to be made reasonably soon so that they can proceed with their structural. If we have a tower that does not meet the structural, that is not the end of the world. I'll give you a perfect example. Georgia Mountain Tower in Marshall County had to be strengthened when Etowah County came on to the Huntsville 911 system. We hung a couple of microwave dishes on it. It's a 500-footer guide tower. That was a project that we ended up having to strengthen that tower because we knew that Marshall County was moving towards P25 and they were probably going to put some gear on it. And so we did a project, and those towers generally can be strengthened from the manufacturer. Hopefully we don't have to do any of that, but hope is not how we do these projects. Facts and studies are how we do these projects. So just FYI. The Palisades, we also had a discussion that, as you remember, that one has an old generator in a generator section that's attached inside the building. There was some discussion about, does it adequately provide what it needs for the tower site or not? Is there a possibility, would it be better to have a generator on the outside of the building? So there was discussion about that. There was some discussion about the cooling in the building. The electrical is going to have to be reworked in the building. There's no question about that because the electrical panels are definitely not up to code for R56 on that. So generally speaking, and I just got documents yesterday from Motorola on some questions that we asked on our first meeting, which were very specific to each site. And the questions were, how many racks of equipment are you bringing? How many BTUs will they be making? How much power does it need? And will you be using, what type of electrical power panels are they going to use? So Motorola has an 8-circuit unit that they like to put in the top of their racks, which requires 8 circuit breakers in a panel. I got partial answers on that. I got the BTU and some of the electrical load. They did not tell me whether they were going to use their distribution panel or we have to provide individual outlets. So in the study for Palisades, you'll see that there are notes in there awaiting confirmation from Motorola on how they intend to power their devices, as to what we will have to do to bring that site up to standard. When we went to, and then just little things, the anchor points, they had some incompatible, attachment points that were causing some corrosion. So there's a laundry list. I'm not gonna bore you with the items. Neil has it. We can go through individuals if somebody has a question on that, but those are things that Motorola's gonna write up when they show up. And that, our goal is for them to show up, look around and go, looks great. Instead of, no, you gotta fix that, call us when you're done, and then they pack up and leave. So, County 11, so let's talk about that for a second. It's obviously, there was some discussion of whether it was the old CSX tower, old AT&T tower. It's built like an old AT&T long lines tower, that's what we call it. It's a 4-leg, previous microwave central hub point. It is a big giant empty concrete building right now, and the tower needs some work. As we were walking underneath it, we found various nuts and bolts lying on concrete, which is never good underneath the tower. However, the good news is that those are like 100-year towers. I mean, they are structural steel. So from that standpoint, a little bit of love and care on that tower, and it's probably fine. The grounding, who knows? Once again, it's a mishmash of stuff that's been done for 40 years or however long that tower's been there. That site, we would ask to do the same thing. We would ask for a 3-point resistance test to determine the grounding that's in the ground, is it still adequate or not, and also to locate it. That's as important as anything, is to buzz it out, have somebody spray paint where the grounding is around the building and the tower site. As you remember, if you've been there, it's up on a raised concrete ledge, so we have the ability to install new grounding around it if we need to, but there's not much left, if any, there. It's just the bottom line. So we did not do a complete survey at that site. I have a list of things that are gonna be obvious points of discussion there, but until the board secures either a lease, a right to use, a purchase, all the above, we really, there's no need in proceeding with what needs to be done until that topic of conversation comes up. Suffice it to say, go back to one of my first conversations, which is, if that site is not available to you with written documentation that you have the right to be there for an extended period of time, either for no money or whatever, your project is in peril of not working. I don't know any other way to put it any more bluntly than that, pun intended.
That's mainly due to the fact that we've got fiber, right?
Correct.
I'm sorry?
I said, that's mainly the reason, due to the fact that we have fiber.
The location and the fiber access, yes.
That's correct. So that is absolutely correct. As Neil said, the one fiber carrier that you have through the county actually is on the pole across the street from that location. And so the goal here, and let me go back real quick. When we do these, there are a couple of items of redundancy that are critical. First one is where you are sitting today and the radio consoles that will be in that building need to have redundant connections to the Birmingham core. Because if you are using one microwave pop or a series of microwave pops or one piece of fiber to get to Birmingham and that link goes down, those $50,000 radio consoles are a brick. Period. End of discussion. They don't work. There's no local control unless you've got a local, the whole, they just don't work unless you have connections to the core. So having two truly diverse paths to the core. What I mean by that is, we all know that Hotelco is it right now for fiber in Blount County in most locations. Don't roll your eyes, Mark. I know, I've tried. I've called everybody in the world, and we can get other carriers, but they will all use Hotelco as the last mile. That is not diversity. You are fooling yourself if you've got an all telco connection and then you buy a Unity connection and then the last mile is a telco. Because if a telco fiber goes down, it's all gonna go down, and both of your connections are gonna go down. So that's why we are trying very hard to make sure that we have two paths that are diverse carrier, be it microwave or fiber, to get those radio consoles in your building to touch the core network. And then the second one we've already discussed, which is to have a ring between the three tower locations so that your RF equipment, so your transmitting repeaters, the GTRs that are out, that would be at Palisades and County 11 if we get there, that they have access to your radio consoles and to the core. So that's the gig. Jefferson County, City of Birmingham Radio Group, I think has been exceptionally willing to work with you in that they have offered to provide at little or no cost the potential of one microwave link to get you to their core. I've had discussions with Greg about there are other customers that he would like to have a southern entry into his system. So there's a possibility that he might want to have a discussion on putting another link in from one of his towers to Palisades or maybe in County 11. Again, he really is working with this in a cooperative fashion. I don't work with him, so I don't make any nickel on him, but in the grand scheme of things, he's trying to do the right thing. I had a very long discussion with him at the last quarterly meeting to kind of get up to speed. And so he's given me some very good pointers on where the bodies are buried, what we need to really push Motorola on and move forward. So the gist is, this is going to be great. Don't let me sound like a naysayer, okay? I'm just a very realistic person. My goal is to come in and just tell you what Motorola is going to come back and stomp their foot and tell you that they didn't tell you during the sales process. Please understand that the group that sold this to you is not the group that's putting it in. When I'm old enough and have enough gray hair, like Adam said, I can remember when we used to have one engineer from the sales process until we finished a radio project. That does not happen anymore. To throw a wrinkle in that's going to aggravate things potentially, the project manager for Motorola has accepted another position with a different company. So June 4th is Mike Chaplin's last day with Motorola. He's being replaced by Robert Lee. I worked with Robert on one other project before. So we have a call scheduled for the 31st of this month. It's kind of a get up to speed call for everybody involved. I don't think that it's going to have a significant impact on any timelines, but what worried me when I first got into this and had these early discussions with Neil and with Adam and with Chris Young with Motorola and some others is there's general agreement on what we want to do. There's very little in writing on the details. So I am trying to wear them out on the details, put it in writing so that Neil can come back to you and say, okay, here's where we are on this. Please don't shoot the messenger. You can, beat on me, I'm the paid help. But what it's going to come down to is that for this to be the system that you want it to be, and for the security of the first responders that are using it, as Mr. Moon said earlier, this is not a project that you can Band-Aid and bubble gum. You will make the 6 o'clock news in a bad way, and none of us want that to happen. The last nugget that I'll throw out that nobody's going to like is the question was posed earlier in the game, when is this going to be done? Project completion, having all the sites up, assuming that we can get some clarity on County 11 soon, getting project plan moving forward with Motorola, getting licensing applications, studies, corrective actions, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be near the end of the first quarter of next year before you're done. I know, just go ahead and throw something at me. Like I said, you may not like me, but my at Motorola I work with that know realistically how long this is gonna take to be done. That's the answer I got. Now that I've made everybody's day, thank you for the opportunity. Like I said, but that's where we are right now, and it's not anything that we haven't seen before. I hate to say, I don't hate to say it, don't feel bad. This is a project that most board members, most directors, most IT staff do once in their lifetime, and it's a big honking deal, okay? And God bless them, Motorola loves to make a sale and tell you it's gonna be fine, just get me some connection, I don't care what type it is, and then it comes down to reality, and that's not what happens. We've had the exact thing happen in Chilton County. They've got a Band-Aid approach going down there until they can get something figured out. Marshall County, we got in early, and I think we got that one kind of laid out correctly, but they ended up spending, and they built 3 towers and spent $1.5 million just on towers. No RF, no nothing, to get their sites up. So I know this is a huge investment for you. Again, I'll be the bad guy. Probably you'll see my face again on the screen, and I'm gonna say you're gonna have to spend some money to make this happen. Some of it may be one-time money, some of it may be recurring money. Please don't shoot Neil, it's not his issue. This is just it's a project that for us to get it to completion and get it there as quick as we can and get you back on what you want, we're gonna have to do it right. So, talk more than I should have, but thank you. And any questions, I'll be more than happy to talk, answer at any time.
So to throw in my 2 cents worth, I got an echo from somebody.
Lee, you might want to mute.
Mute yourself for a second, Lee.
Oh,
Okay, now I'm not leaving. Remember a couple months ago, we had this conversation of some OTELCO money that we felt was owed back to us. Through a lot of work that Adam put in and several conversations, and Rachel and I tracking back a substantial amount of data to prove our point, we felt we were owed, at one point I thought about 90,000. OTELCO came back and explained the way their tariff is written, and I still think we were probably owed somewhere around 50,000, but by the time we could have gone through litigation and everything, we probably netted the same thing. We've got a $36,000 check that has been deposited. What I would ask for a motion on is to take that 36,000 and apply it into our bank account that we opened for the radio process, and then allow us up to $3,000 for Chris and I to remediate what we can on the easy side of these R56 things that Lee has found. He's got us a very good blueprint of things that need to be done, and a lot of it is as simple as snipping off a terminal end that is there and crimping on a correct end. So a lot of that I feel like we can remediate in-house relatively inexpensively without having to get anybody from outside that we're paying. You've got Chris and I here, and we can do some of that in a few days once we get the parts. So that was my request of take that 36,000, put it into the radio account, and allow us up to 3,000 to see how much of this we can knock off the list before we start contracting anybody to finish out the grounding work.
And this is a question for Lee, can we do that without jeopardizing, Motorola coming in and saying, well, a certified electrician didn't make these repairs? Can we do that in-house?
yes, the short answer is yes, as long
Okay.
as, and I can help Neil and anyone else there with pictures, exactly what it's supposed to look like. We've already talked about sourcing some materials, so it's not rocket science, it's just following the rules.
Right.
And the short answer is yes, if they have time and they wish to do that from a cost saving perspective, the answer is yes. And when Motorola comes in, I will be there when their inspector shows up, and we will duke out anything that he wants to add.
I don't question their ability to do it, I just didn't want there to be a, here's that gray area,
The certificate. of
yeah,
loss.
yeah. I didn't want a piece of paper standing in the way.
Being that it's non-voltage load, I don't think there's any certification
Okay.
issue.
That was my only question, I just didn't want there to be another, we have to go back and redo something.
I have no problem with putting the money in there. I do have a problem with you and Chris doing it because you're not experienced at that stuff. You don't have any kind of certification for it. And there ain't no doubt in my mind that when Motorola comes in, they're gonna find something. I don't like the idea of spending more money. But if we pay somebody to do it that's certified, and then we get hit on it, and again, we need to issue PO numbers and whatever with Lee's repent of what's to be done, so that we can go back on somebody if they want it done again. Otherwise, if they come in and hit something that y'all do, then we still gonna have to pay somebody to do it. And we done spent that money.
Most of this is not pulling wire, most of this is
Crimping.
clipping, strip, crimp, and put a correct fastener in. That is what most of what I'm talking about is, but these terminal ends are $12 and $14 a piece to get the 2-hole copper, 2-all terminals that we're supposed to have.
And
per
just
standard.
crimping, there's no soldering or CAD welding or anything.
No, they've
This
got,
is
they've got to be
elementary.
crimped on, they can't be screw on.
Yeah.
Going back to hotel call, looking at this, is this on here in addition to the 30-something thousand you're talking about, we gotta check?
No, that is the $36,000 that we got the check for.
Okay, so they're not, Hotelco is not holding this,
No, we got the check. It's in the bank.
Check is in the bank.
okay, but I don't understand the credit here, that's what I didn't understand.
That's just the way they reflected it in their paperwork. But we have a $36,000 check that has been deposited.
Oh, okay, because I was seeing it on here and it said, whoa, they're holding it versus us holding it.
No.
That's the way I read that.
Right.
You see it?
Yeah, it's a credit.
I'm assuming that was Ken, I can't see Ken, so, but I'm assuming that was Ken that had a question about the work. I would be more than happy to come up and do an instruction class, on what I think they can handle if that's what the board chooses to do. So, I'll be more than happy to do that. However, Ken is correct in that there's a limited list of items of things that can be corrected with very minimal training and or certification, and I'm not trying to down Neil or anyone else there. My concern was just with workload, really more than anything. But that is, like I said, there's always ways that you can save money. I would be more than happy to come up and be with them and make sure that they fully understand, inspect a few of them, make sure they're doing it right, move on, if that's what the board wishes to do.
Lee, didn't I hear you say earlier that you recommended that we do an outside firm to do this because in the long run that it could be the best thing to do? Didn't you say that earlier, I believe?
I did, and I still think that with the volume of work that has to be done in total, things that can be done by potential local and stuff that needs to be done by somebody that's got a certification, especially if you combine into 3 sites, you're gonna get some pricing discount because of the volume of the work. But the question that was posed to me is, if Neil and team do some corrective actions that involve replacing connectors with double O's and stainless hardware on ground blocks, is that gonna pass? As long as they're crimped correctly, the answer is yes. There is a whole lot of work to be done.
What kind of money savings you talking about if you do it?
I have no idea, but if we cut 12 hours worth of what we would have had to pay MCA for, that should reflect in what they
Well,
charge us to do the rest.
And one thing I want to add to, Neil, is that the MCA and Allcom have taken a long period of time. It takes them
Yes.
a long period of time to do anything. And that's I'm not dissing anybody.
Well, I don't care.
But
Our grounding work at the Sneed Tower site, for example, we approved at the September board meeting. It got done in March.
Did we issue a PO and require them to specify what to do? No, we didn't. We have got to go to something, getting off on something I want to get on, but we need to start issuing POs and specifying the work that's to be done in detail so that we've got a track record.
We had a signed quote that they submitted to us that was their scope of work.
But their scope of, my understanding, most of their scope of work is very broad. It's like, I got a tank full of gas. It didn't say, I want a tank of super unleaded, no ethanol, and that stuff. We're letting things slip through the cracks and paying, I think, more than once, whether it's all come well. I don't care who does it, you know. But I do think we need to look long and hard, just like the problems we're running into right now. That if we'd had Lee in the beginning of this, we wouldn't have some of the problems we got today. That's hindsight. But I think we need to stop trying to do stuff that's not our direct job. You know, I'm like what Lee just said too. I worry about overload. All I hear is, I got too much to do, got too much to do. To go out here and spend no telling what kind of time it's gonna take to do it right at 3 sites, I just totally can't agree with that. And the same
I'm
thing.
talking about two. I'm talking about the two that we own, to get them remediated to what we can before we bring somebody else in.
Would it be a significant savings, or?
I have no
What
idea.
do I do?
Yeah, I
But
guess
if
we,
we get somebody else to come in, you still gotta go out there with them, right?
Well, I'd go with them. We just have to give them access.
Lee, can you get that, you talked about getting a statement and then turning those statements around from quotes from the different vendors, to give us some kind of price. Is that something that we can move forward with, and at least we will have an outline of how much it's gonna cost to start with and the work that needs to be done and performed? Is that something you can provide to us and get us
Yes,
in
what I
motion?
can, yes, sir. What I can do is I'll take the two sites that we did a full study on, turn that into a specific.
Statement of work.
Scope of work.
Okay,
And then get quotes.
You can shop that to whoever you would like.
and
then,
then based on that statement of quote, we can determine what we can do in-house, if we can, or how much it's gonna cost in the interim.
yes, sir.
Okay.
My only concern is that pushes us another month.
Lee, how long will it take to get that information to us?
Couple days.
It's okay. I don't see it taking a month. I'm with
It
you on
takes
this
another
now.
month for us to meet and approve it.
We can have a special meeting.
We can have a special meeting and do that. You know, there's always excuse not to do it. Let's do it right from here on. Let's quit trying to do it from here and here and here. That's what worries me. We've done so much of that, and we're having to get stuff
Well, I
redone.
think the thing he's talking about is elementary stuff, kind of, on the elementary level. Getting that stuff out of the way, the nitpicky things, and kind of saving that kind of money, because you're gonna be paying by the hour.
Correct.
And we've already got it.
So Lee, if you can get that
if we can
statement
train
for
him.
us, and
Yeah.
once we have that
Pay
in
by the hour,
hand,
pay a markup for materials that we can buy at
Right.
regular cost, all of that.
And didn't Lee say he had some possible vendors that could do this stuff, get quotes from?
well, what we'll do is we'll get Lee to present that scope of work to us, let's see what's there, then we'll have a special, or we'll call a work session, we can divvy out what we feel like we can do in-house, and we'll go forward with that. Lee, can you work on that for us, please?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll have that to you, probably Monday at the latest.
Okay.
So can we go ahead and set up a special session time now?
That's.
If he's gonna have it Monday, next week?
Certainly, if you can.
Let's hold that for the last item on the agenda before we get calendars out, because we may have a second thing that we need to add to that when we get to the end.
Okay. All right, so we'll table that for the moment, and then we'll get back with you on a work session. All right, anything else on the next item, will be the surplus of antennas for the Palisade site?
If you'll remember back last spring when we had our wind damage, we had an insurance claim, replaced a bunch of antennas. We have 3 20-foot antennas sitting on the ground up there that Chris and I are having to weed eat and mow around. The Public Safety Amateur Radio Group, which is our friends that do the ham radios for our storm events, and they assisted with the pandemic vaccination day, and they just do a lot of good stuff. they have some interest in those antennas that I don't see that we have a use for. Currently, they're just sitting on the ground and growing weeds around them. So this is their request and my request to surplus those and allow them to take them and use them as they see fit.
I make a motion, we do it. Come to my house and have about 3 or 4 more.
I'll second that motion.
All right, have a motion second, any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right. That brings us down to our last item on the agenda is the executive session to discuss possible litigation and realty property.
Can we legally discuss the property in executive session?
Yes,
Yes,
Okay.
we can.
this is potential purchase.
Okay.
You can do that. Because you get into amounts, negotiations.
Okay.
Now, do we need to make a motion on the 36?
Yes, thank you. We talked about it, but we kind of skipped over doing that
Yeah.
The what?
to move that 36,000 into the radio account.
I didn't know you were gonna.
Let's go ahead and move that over there.
I'd make that motion. Motion.
I'll second.
Even if we don't do anything else with it at the moment, let's go ahead and get it into that account.
All right, so there's a motion on the table to reserve the Otelco money in the total of amount of $36,000 and move that into the P25 radio system for expenditures. That motion was made by Mr. Bass and second by Mr. Gunn. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor by roll call vote? Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Gunn?
Aye.
Mr. Pass?
Aye.
Mr. Sanford?
Aye.
Mr. Gilbert? Sheriff Moon?
Yay.
Thank you.
Yes.